Welcome, guys. Welcome. Oh, just in time. Eman's face just popped in from it looks like his basement, but we are here. We are what is today? The 2nd of July. Welcome to class, everyone. Good to have you on. Good to have you on. So just heads up with our special guest, we're just trying to work out time differences. So in Florida, their time is like 8 a.m. So it does work, but it's just about coordinating the right time if they're up. I send them the links just in case. So both of them. So if they get it and they join, then they join. But if not, just if their face pops up, then you shall see it. But would you send me a whole bunch of questions to answer, which is tremendous. That's exactly what I want. That makes life a lot easier than me saying, do you guys have any questions? And then everyone does by the end of it. So we'll go through those first, because I might actually answer some of the questions that you guys might already have. All right, those 4 questions. I love them. Okay, so the first one, can you guys hear me all right? Yeah, it's not too bad. I might put my microphone a bit up. All right, so the first question is, what is the purpose of chain wrestling in a kayfabe sense, other than feeling each other out? Are we trying to get your opponent to submit via headlock and wrist lock? Good question. So it is basically like a form of feeling someone out and trying to figure out what they can and can't do, kind of like the skill levels. You can almost start telling a story through that anyways. Like, it is the feeling out process. That's why a lot of the times it doesn't work with certain stories and sizes. Like, for instance, I was trained as a chain wrestler. I love chain wrestling. I absolutely love it. But I was told by Lance, who has all the tips and tricks when it comes to it, but I never get to do chain because with my character and my size, I never really get the opportunity to and the story. So I never really get a chance to do so. A lot of the ones that I have matches in as like jump starts, or people will try to jump me beforehand, or there's like emotion and all that stuff. But chain is a really good way to kind of like start everything off, almost like a feeling out period. Also, to start telling that story. So if you have a match that doesn't have any story, any heat, anything at all, and the crowd don't even know who you both are, what better way to do it and show your skill than doing this? If there's no obvious story or size difference or whatever it is, or character difference, chain is always a really good way. Like rookies, especially in their very first matches, this is what you'll do, because it's a very simple and easy form of storytelling, especially if you have no gimmick or character yet, right? So we're not obviously like, you're not really trying to make them tap out from their headlock or wrist lock. You're more inflicting pain and seeing how they respond to it, and trying to weaken. You're almost like chopping down a tree. Do you know what I mean? And cutting them down and slowly getting there. That's probably how I would look at it in terms of why we do chain and what the point of chain is. It is it's a story starter. It's a very good way to like kind of open stories and close them within the match and within the show. So you can do a lot of things where you set things up of like an up and over, like maybe you hit a buckle the second time you go for a buckle on, like, let's say if we're doing basic chain with spots, you can do the up and over stuff. But hold on, I'll break that even further. We can do stuff like basic chain of a simple baby face and simple heel when you're trying to keep it as absolutely simple as possible, where in theory, if there's no real difference in size, in strength, in height, if you want to even, and not even necessarily experience or skill, man, you can even have that, but you'd literally be chain wrestling, and technically the babyface would out wrestle the heel, right? They would reverse faster, the heel would sit in the hold a little bit longer, sell a little bit longer, they would reverse quicker, and then they would do cooler stuff and progress to the next thing. So if me and let's say it's like because Butcher asked question, maybe it's like Butcher and let's say even Shabam, like it's not necessarily a big size difference, but let's say, oh no, Butcher, because you got no gimmick. Imagine you doing your gimmick with your glasses on. there's no Butcher, right? You're having a normal match. You can chain in terms of feeling each other out and seeing the other person's skill level or ability or whatever. So let's say Shabam's the heel. maybe the babyface takes control first, takes the arm, easy arm wringer, boom, reverse. Let's say Butcher starts doing some fancy stuff, like maybe a roll kip up, gets him in there, takes him down, locks it. Shavem does something, takes him over, and then maybe does something fancier. Let's say does a roll Owen Hart head kick, because heels can do fancy stuff. They just need to get burnt after. So let's say he does something fancy, but then as soon as he lands on his feet, Butcher catches him, puts it in the arm drag, locks it. Right. So now he's beat him every time. So maybe from there they do another counter spot, and then this time Shavem goes for the arm drag, who's the heel, but he tells, and this is another thing of storytelling and like calling from the bottom as a heel, he goes, hold on, I'm going to hold on. Or hold on to the arm drag. So when he arm drags him, Butcher just holds on and flips over. So then he counters the arm drag and locks it in. We're already starting to tell that one wrestler is better than the other in terms of chain. One's smarter, one's more intelligent, the other one's getting frustrated and angry. And then you can start introducing the frustration from the heel where they attempt to cheat, or they start pulling hair, and then they can't get the job done in terms of skills, so they have to cheat. This is like a really good way of storytelling in terms of kayfabe, because that's obviously behind the scenes of how wrestling works. If we're looking at this in terms of kayfabe as to why the wrestler would do it, you are literally trying to wrestle them and do it the right way without cheating, right? Because in reality, like especially back early days, a closed fist was illegal. You weren't really allowed to strike with a closed fist, right? So early days, you'd see them actually chain, and they would punch him off the chain, and that would be the heat spot. You know what I mean? Closed fists were illegal. You'd see Ric Flair put him in a headlock and do the sneaky head punch. And if you guys know how to do it, you know they if you just pop from here and it makes that noise, right? So that was a Ric Flair spot. They would do chain, we'd grab the guy, put him in a headlock, turn his back to the ref, and then pop him right in the head. And they'd sell. And he goes, I didn't do anything. I just had him in a headlock because these closed fists used to be illegal, right? So that's how they used to back in the day. It's more of like, I can't start punching you, right? So I'm going to see if I can out wrestle you because it's wrestling and you're trying to use maneuvers and things, and then eventually the heel would cheat because he can't out wrestle you. So from the basic storytelling, from the basic thing of kayfabe, it's like, I'm trying to beat you in a fight. I'm not allowed to punch, but I'm going to try to beat you in a fight. And then the heel can't beat you. And as a heel, you're trying, and you get frustrated and cheat. So you're trying to out wrestle them and out maneuver them, get into their brain, trying to beat them mentally as well as physically, wear them down into other stuff. Hence why we lead into like body slams and stuff. One thing also with chain though, remember, once we go from striking in chain, we can't really go back to chain. Right? Like you can hit the arm, you can yank it and do all that stuff. But if you have it, you can't really punch the guy in the face and put him in a wrist lock. Like you've really gone from punching. Everything after that, punching's up here. You're just walking, you're going backwards. All right. Does that answer that question for you, Butch?
Yeah. But also like just want to ask like in like a perfect game plan, like let's say like we're actually like chain wrestling, like
Yeah.
will like the headlock lead to like victory, or is
I
the
wouldn't.
intention of the wrestler to be like, oh, headlock, then okay, like the guy is like one down, okay, I can hit something bigger. Like, oh, what's the the psychology behind it?
In terms of what? So why would you put him in a headlock?
Yeah, okay. So let's say like my game plan is to just like wear the person down with a headlock. So ultimately, do I want to pin the person with the headlock or submit the person with the headlock, or is it to just wear the person down like so much where like after that I can just hit like a slam or whatever?
It is to wear them down, because then it's like at the start of a match you wouldn't be able to hit your finisher, right? Because they're ready,
Yeah.
they're fresh, they're strong. So you're wearing them down. So let's say your finish involves dropping them, like your finish is a DDT. What better way to wear them down to be able to hit that DDT by working the head in the headlock? So you wouldn't be looking at using arm drags or looking to do that. Like you might be wanting to, but your ultimate goal is to go for their head. So you're using headlocks, headlock takeovers, maybe a snapman to a chin lock if you're looking at holds, that is, but you're pretty much trying to wear them down and weaken that head. So when you finally hit him with your finish, they're not getting up.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah,
wouldn't
because
be
like
like,
for
yeah,
yeah,
I wouldn't. There's almost like levels of moves. Like before you
yeah,
can hit this move, you got to hit something else. Like Brett wouldn't be able to hit the sharpshooter straight away, so he's got to weaken them first and weaken that back, and then so when they are weak enough, he can hit that sharpshooter.
right. Yeah, because like for example, like I was watching like Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels,
Yeah.
WrestleMania 21. Like Shawn Michaels was like going for the headlock, then like he was also trying to pin like with the headlock. So is he really like trying to go for victory, or is it more of like, hey, like I'm gonna threaten
So
you with a pin? So
no, no,
like
no.
yeah,
Okay, again, this is good. That's a good question. What do you reckon it's based on? It's based on
a story.
story,
Yeah.
right? Because Kurt Angle is the wrestling god, right? He's an amateur wrestler. He's won 2 gold medals. He's a wrestler. And Sean is just a pro wrestler, but he's got a lot of heart. So he's trying to keep up and show that he can keep up with Kurt Angle in terms of wrestling, especially pro wrestling, which is slightly different to amateur wrestling. But he's also trying to end this quickly. So if he can get him on a pinfall, then he will. If he can get him in a headlock, like this is WrestleMania, they're trying to win. In the kayfabe sense, you're just trying to win as best and quick as possible. Because if you win, you get that payday, you get that title shot, whatever it is. Like Sean is going to have, if you get caught lacking, if you're taking time to rest and your shoulders on them out for that 3 seconds, I'm going to get you. So it's kind of like he's telling that story of like, I need to stay, like Angle has to stay alert. He needs to stay on this. You are the king of amateur wrestling, but this is wrestling wrestling. This is different. So I'm going to show you the tricks that I know here. I can pin you from here. I can do this. This isn't points. This is holding you down for 3 seconds. Do you know what I mean? So like, that's the story there. Because obviously, if you look at the match he has with Shelton Benjamin, it's quite different. If you watch Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit have their match, it's also different. Like they're still chaining, but they're also trying to get the upper hand. Like I feel that specifically is that kind of story because I know the match you're talking about. So
Yeah.
that's there. Good observation though. Put it this way, I always have a tendency to go before I look deep into like the specific moves, I will go, what's the overall story they're trying to tell me? Like, what do they want me to feel? And in all honesty, it doesn't necessarily mean it's correct because again, wrestling and art is interpretive, so it's how you take it. But if you're looking at it from that point, you're going to be like, okay, well, what is it here that like they're trying to say? What are they trying to tell me? Okay, well, if he's a wrestler, okay, what's a good way to show it? To show that you know what you're doing, to show that you're on point. Do you know what I mean? That's it. It's like Sean's trying to make sure if you make one mistake, I got you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's a good question. It's a very good question. Do you want me to go to your next question, or is there any more questions about that one?
No, all good, all good.
Perfect. All right. I can see the questions in the side chat. I'll read them in a sec. I'll go through all Butcher's ones, and then I'll go through those ones as well. So the second question is, when in a wear down hold, you mentioned you are holding the person down and thinking of your next move. Normally, the person will eventually fight out of the hold. In a perfect game plan, kayfabe wise, are we trying to submit the opponent, or are we going to wear them down so much until you can execute the next move? Okay, good question. I like that you're like really digging into it. So when I tell you what I'm doing in terms of like what my character does, when I'm in the heat and I'm beating him down and I'm like, you know what? I think I've got him. And I hit him, suplex, 1, 2, they kick out. My character is still like later in the match, it's more frustration, exhaustion. I'm not going to go do a hold straight away. I'm going to be like, I'm reacting. But early on, I need to stay on him, right? Especially if I'm going, like if I'm setting up a hook. So I'm going to be like, I'm not going to let him recover. He just kicked out. I'm like, shit, hold. Right. And I'm going to wear him down. I'm trying to wear him down. I hope he submits, but I'm also trying to make sure he doesn't catch a breather while I think of my next move because I don't know what I'm going to do next in kayfabe because I thought he was going to win from here. Like my mentality is like, all right, boom, boom. All right. You know what? I think I can win. Suplex, 1, 2, shit. That didn't work. Bang, down. Fuck. What can I do from here? I'm going to wear him down. I'm going to put him in a hold and I'm like, fuck. And then they start, and I'm like, maybe. Like I'm still thinking like, oh man, like he's getting up. Fuck, I need to do something. And then he starts firing up from the crowd and starts coming up. Then I'm like, fuck, I'm not ready. And I'm looking at the crowd like, shut. And I'm almost looking at the crowd like, please shut the fuck up. Like I'm trying to think, man. You're giving this guy like stop. You know what I mean? That's where my frustration goes outwards. But I'm hoping to submit them, and I'm trying to beat them, but I'm also trying to subdue them and hold them while not letting them catch their breath, while I catch my breath and also think. Because if I let go, I might recover because I'm not doing anything, but he will also recover. So I'm trying to stop him from recovering in a chokehold or whatever. I'm trying to torture him and hurt him some more to weaken him while I'm thinking of my next move. Now that's why I do what I do. You need to also think about in terms of the story of why you would do it. If, let's say, you and I, Butcher, in a blood feud, and we've been going at each other for ages, and I know I've injured your back beforehand, maybe I'm just torturing your back. Maybe I just want to put you through pain. Maybe I don't want you to tap yet. Maybe I want to make you suffer. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I'm going to stomp you some more, break you, pull, and start hurting you. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm not trying to win you, but I need to make sure I get that story across so everyone understands it. Is that clear?
Yeah. In fact, like that last point, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I watched your match with Eman like this afternoon actually, and I think you guys were going for that story a bit where like you were hitting a lot of these like big moves and like you were just like torturing Iman, but like you didn't like go for pins like all the time.
Yeah.
But then I don't know whether I'm correct or not, but like it's as if like because you didn't like capitalize on the pin, like Iman was like able to fight back.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Oh, good. At least Eman, you got our story, which is good. Essentially, it was that I underestimated Eman a lot. And I didn't think he had the heart. And it was a good way to give Eman some edge and some like fire. So that's why if you notice, he jump starts me. And that's a heel move to jump start, right? But he jump start me as a baby face because he understands that this isn't like a normal challenge. He's coming off the loss. He's frustrated. He needs to get this win. So he jump starts me and goes at it. Because he's the underdog, it looks like he's got heart. He has me reeling. And then I catch him, and then we do the size and strength, and I just work on his back. And then you see, I'm punishing him for it. I'm like frustrated that he thinks he can do this. And also, if you watch the promo that we did earlier, I'm embarrassed that he's my guy and he lost. So I'm going to embarrass you for embarrassing me. So I'm going to work on him and kill him. But what happens is I get too cocky, I get too arrogant about it, and that allows him to make the comeback to the point where he shows so much heart and so much edge that he's about to win. And when he goes after the superplex and he's got that heart and I'm pretty much out cold, he goes to get me and his back is gone. And that's because the entire match, I worked on it with suplexes and strikes and backbreakers and everything. So the story culminated by the end where he could have got it. He did everything. He overcame. He got the edge, the strength of the heart to beat me. And my cockiness and arrogance almost cost me. But because I did so much damage to his back, he couldn't finish.
Yeah.
So does that make like that's the kind of story we're doing?
Yeah.
Good. Oh, he picked it up. That's very exciting. Cool. All right. Your third question was, can you explain the meaning of momentum in a match? Is it making sure that you follow your game plan or strategy to put away your opponent, or is it something else? Do you mean in a kayfabe sense or in a storytelling sense?
I guess both, because like so normally you hear on commentary like, oh, like this guy is looking to gain momentum, and like I think like I listened to like an interview with like Raven, and he was talking about momentum, but he said he was gonna cover it in another like interview because it's a very like advanced concept. But yeah, like I was always like wondering like what does like momentum mean.
That's interesting. I'll be honest, I'm not, unless we cover it unless like I've been taught it kind of a different meaning or whatever to it. I don't know too much about what the momentum that Raven's talking about. I might even ask my guys, some of the advanced, like the big guys, what they think about the topic of momentum. Because for me, in terms of like a kayfabe sense, it's more of just like the snowball effect. It's like getting the engine going. It's like, when it's a cold day. Well, you guys would know a cold day because it's fucking always hot where you are. But here, or in most places that are cold, you can't just start the car up. You got to warm it up, and once it's warm, you can go. It's almost like that. It's almost like we're trying to gain that one step, two step, three step, and then you start climbing, get and get that ball rolling. But if you and the whole thing is like essentially when you go from zero all the way to your like let's say your fifth gear, right? In terms of a baby face, once you got that momentum in your fifth gear, you're unstoppable, right? And if we're talking momentum wise, in a kayfabe sense, if you start getting to start gear, maybe the end of your shine, you start hitting gear three, we need to stop it. As a heel, I need to stop it because if you get to five, this match is done. So I'm trying to stop that momentum. So then we'll bring it back to like a one. And then in a heat, you go from one. You go maybe the 1-2, and then 1-2-3. And then we go into the double down or the bump and feed, and bump and feed, you're at four. And now we're going back and forth, and maybe you get another one, and you're in fifth gear and you're flying. Right? Same thing goes for like the heel. Do you know what I mean? If the heel maybe in the middle of the heat, he's at gear three, that's when the home spot happens and it brings you back down to gear two. Does that make sense? It's almost like it's just that for me, anyways, when I hear momentum, that's what I'm thinking in terms of like a storytelling and a kayfabe sense of if that snowball keeps rolling, it's gonna get bigger and bigger and you can't stop it. So we're talking about how we're trying to stop it and let it go so it doesn't completely overrun one side of the story. Obviously, in a squash, that's 1-5, right?
Yeah.
So when we're doing the stuff before, we're trying to tell that back and forth story in terms of like, and then sometimes again, with shiny comeback, that's one formula. Maybe just like when I had my match with Statement at my PW, ours was just back and forth. Like he would get the two, I would get the two, he'd get the three, I'd get the three, and then we just kept going and switching gears and see who'd get on top. So it also again depends on the story, but you could always have someone almost hit fourth gear and then cut them off, and their momentum completely stops, and then it's enough for you to start bringing yours all the way up, and then it stops, and you go into a double down where you're both at zero, and then during the falsies you're building back trying to get momentum either way. And maybe you both don't get momentum and you're both fucking dead, and it's out of desperation. And then you get that win from there. Is that a bit clearer?
I think that was like what I was thinking of too.
Yeah.
Because I was watching like Ray versus Kurt Angle SummerSlam. I watched it, I think I don't know how many times already.
Bro, I know. I think I brought up that matchup, but I've seen it. I can call it to you off the top of my head. Yeah.
So like I realized that like Ray's pace in the beginning was like blistering pace, and then like Kurt Angle boom like this kind of like stopped his momentum, I guess. Like so like Kurt was trying to like make the match like go at his pace, try to slow things down, and then Ray is just trying to like quicken up the pace so that he can like kind of like outmaneuver Kurt. I don't know whether like I'm viewing it correctly or not.
No, but again, that's it. It's literally the story they're telling. Like, and from a like completely like a basic standpoint from the very very start, like for someone that's like a child that probably doesn't get it, it's like fast is exciting, slow is boring, right? So if a child sees that, fast exciting, slow boring. So Ray is going very fast, and I want to see more of that, but Kurt's not letting him, so I don't like him for that.
Yeah.
And that by default you don't like Kurt because he's stopping you from seeing what you want. Like that's like if you're tearing it down all the way to basic to explain it to a child. Do you know what I mean? And then that's one level, but they also do so many different levels. There's size and strength. There's that speed and agility versus like the raw power of Kurt Angle and the his countering ability. But then you've also got Ray's countering ability where they counter each other all the time from the wheelbarrow suplex into the pin, from the angle slam to the arm drag. Like they're just countering each other. So you're seeing at the levels of which they are even. You can see that Angle can actually go faster when he wants to, but Ray's also faster. So there's that.
Yeah.
Cool?
Yep.
Sweet ass. Also, with anyone else that if you guys like are sitting there while we cover this stuff, if I'm confusing you or there's something that like if Butcher gets it, that's cool. But if you guys don't understand, just tell me so I can kind of explain a bit more for you guys too. All right. And your last one, let me get it, is you've been watching a lot of matches, looking at why wrestlers do moves, and what you've gathered is hit a move to pin, to inflict pain and punishment, to create separation, and to work a body part. Am I correct to view matches this way? And if I watch it this way, because you find that the story is easier from there. That, I mean, there's nothing wrong with watching it that way at all, Butch. Again, you can look at it from that perspective and gather the story, or you can gather the story and use those as evidence as to why that's the story. So it doesn't really matter which way you view it. Either way it works. Like, I have a tendency to kind of do watch it from like an overall standpoint. So I find it hard now with wrestling because it's harder to enjoy because I'm trying to break it down all the time. Like, I can't help but trying to like figure out why they're doing it. I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, what are they doing here? What are they trying to do? When I should just enjoy the match and the story and let it happen. And that's it. That's what I need. That's what I'm working on for me. I need to like watch the match, enjoy it for what it is, and then go back and break it down. My problem is I try to do all of it at the same time. It's almost like the analogy of like, it's almost like going to a movie that you haven't seen before with someone that hasn't seen it and going, hey, why is he doing that? Do you know why he's doing that? It's like, it's fucking annoying. I'm annoying. So like, I annoy myself because I'm thinking like, why is he doing that? When really, you just need to sit there, watch the movie, watch it play out, stop trying to figure it out, and just enjoy it for what it is, and then come back and watch it. Does it take longer? Yes, but it's a lot easier to understand the story and understand the points because you can see what you got from it and see if the things that they do within the match back the story that you've seen. Right? It's just hard now these days because like you'll watch a movie and I'm like, oh, I know the finish. It ruins it because you can see what they're leading up to. So like, don't as wrestlers we ruin everything because I think everything's a work. But so like you gotta like it. I would just, if I were you, Butch, I would watch the match and enjoy it, then go back and then if you find it easier to like watch for certain things and go, okay, that's the story. I find it personally easier to watch the whole thing, learn it, like understand what story they were trying to tell me, and then watch it back to see what they were doing was backing that story. It just
Right.
takes longer.
Yeah, because like I don't know, I think I have like undiagnosed like ADHD. So sometimes I'm like that's watching the match and then I'm like, why are we here? Like why is this happening like now? So then I have
Yeah.
to like rewind and then watch, then I'll get it. But like yeah, sometimes like I have trouble like understanding like why, okay, let's see, like maybe the heel takes over and then after that like uh suddenly the baby face kind of like does a very long like hope spot. So I like sometimes I get confused with that. So when
Yeah.
I viewed
So
it, like yeah,
I'm gonna give you a heads up, right?
yeah,
Because I felt the same way. And
yeah,
this is what confused me really early in my career because I didn't
yeah,
understand it, right? Not everyone tells stories well. And not
right.
everyone will follow a specific like uh, formula or how they want to tell that story because we will think of a story and how we think it should be told, but they will look at it and tell it completely different and how
Mm,
they think is best. And we may not get it or see it. So sometimes when we're analyzing and breaking it down, it can be very hard, right? Like it's like they will tell a story and I'm like, oh, what the fuck was that? Or they, you know what I mean? Sometimes it doesn't make sense early on because for them, it's just this portion of the match doesn't really mean anything. It's just like it's just the start to kind of warm everyone up. So everything that happens in this portion doesn't necessarily mean anything, but we're going to do it anyways because it's kind of like the filler at the start, and then we get into it, and then it kicks into like the latter half of the match where you're like, oh, this is sick. You're invested, right? And then you kind of have to sit through the slower because maybe sometimes I know some guys plan their match through paces. So like they might have the slow pace here, lead to a moment, change the pace, lead to another moment, and then go to the end where it's like fast paced crazy. But for us to appreciate the fast paced crazy thing here, we need to go really slow so you can see the contrast. So sometimes they'll do it from there. The thing with wrestling is there's a lot of different ways to tell stories. The way that I teach you guys, and the easiest way is like for me, it's the easiest way to kind of like generalize and see the majority of people that know how to tell stories. And some of the great matches in history usually follow this kind of like the way that we look at break down wrestling. And it's the easiest that I've found for the crowds, no matter what country, to understand. and they can kind of pick up and understand what's going on. That's why, like, depending on where you wrestle, but even then, I think the number one thing in wrestling is story, right? Like, even for instance, like I know Shivam will probably, I don't know if he agrees. I don't know. Like, would you say, Shivam, that your crowd in Thailand is more heavily Japanese influenced? I feel like it is. I feel like in Thailand it is a bit more,
Yeah, I
right?
would say so as well. Yeah.
Right. So like that's what they're accustomed to. Now, if you watch any of my matches, I don't do that style, right? I do a very Western, like American style of wrestling. But even though I do that style and they're used to another, I'm still managed to get over and get reactions and get pops, right? And I tell it completely, and I do something completely different than what they're used to. So I feel, even if it's not your style, like if I need to do a different style match, then I'll do whatever I need to. But I have a certain style of match that I like the formula or the format of storytelling I like to tell. And on shows, like I will always test it out. Like when I had that match with JJ the first time in Thailand, you know what I mean? It was a very different experience to when we do it in Malaysia. Malaysia's crowd is very like WWE inspired and very more like very crowd interactive, but very like Western. So they like the story. So when you do the story stuff, they love it and they pop and they love the characters, right? And I think in Thailand it's a bit more of the Japanese style, but that doesn't mean that you still can't get reactions and add variety to a show by following that formula. So that's what I tend to do. Everyone has their own styles. Like you might, if you go to Japan and do that, then do that style. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't mean, you know, it's not gonna work. Like Vicey and Statement had a great match in Singapore, and it was a very mostly Japanese style match. And then my match with Aiden was a very Western style, but they were very similar in a lot of ways, especially because we tried to tell almost a similar story. Emma, just basically, I just saw that question pop now. In Oz is a very American style. I would say yes. I think people are trying to do like a strong style here, and it doesn't really get over. People love characters. Good example, bro. Like if you look at Canberra, like they are all cheesy, like American like TV style, and they're drawing like 1,000, right? I feel like MCW is also the same. I think they're very character based because look at the guys that are over at MCW, right? Look at Tuckman was just there and he's super over. Jesse Lambert was super over. Mikey Broderick is crazy over. Look at Delta, like all these, they're all like character based characters that aren't just doing like a strong style or like a wrestling based gimmick. Like it's the characters that kind of sell. So for me, the biggest like lesson I can probably give you is like make sure you actually have a character, because it's the only thing that I think separates us from any other fight industry. And like if you are the one singular serious wrestler or whatever, that's fine. You will only thrive if you're surrounded by a lot of characters. Because if you have a lot of characters around you, then it's a lot easier to be the serious guy because you stand out. But if you're all the serious guys, then it's just a bunch of same dudes doing the same thing. Do you know what I mean? I would even look at like even New Japan, because New Japan are becoming like they've always tried to be more of like a Western style, like Japanese company. Hence why they have like, you know what I mean, all the foreigners. But like look at the guys that get over. Look at Tanahashi. Look at like Okada. Look at Evil. Like look at these guys that have gimmicks and characters that seem to like stand out. Do you know what I mean? So that's just my opinion, based on that. But again, it kind of like I know we kind of veered off topic a bit, Butch, but like that's kind of like how I see it. Does that kind of make sense a little bit? Did I answer your question from before as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Thanks, Daddy.
Oh, mother. On the recording. I hate you. All right. I'm gonna try see the other questions. Shawal's question was, which one is the cutoff? Is it the one where the heel stops the face's shine, or is it the face end of the heel's heat? Okay, so this is I'll give you like the phrases and words I use for each little portion. Okay, so When we're starting off, we are doing the shine. So shine usually is to shine the baby face, to make the baby face look good, to shine him up real nice and make him look real pretty. But also the shine, I believe, is where we tell the story, right? So we do that. Now, usually at the tail end of the shine is the high spot, because before we go down, we want to go up. We want to bring the crowd up before we bring it down. So that's how you remember it. It's the high spot. So this is like one of your nicer moves, like a nice crossbody up the top, or like, you know, some nice fancy thing or something that's your character thing that you do. That's your high spot. Now, once we go up into the high spot, when we're going to end the shine, we call this the heat spot, because it's the spot that goes into the heat. Okay, so it's the heat spot. During the heat, now we're in the heat spot, we've hit the heat, now we're in the heat, we'll do hope spots, right? Which is we're giving the crowd hope that the baby face is going to overcome the heat and make a comeback. But we're not doing a comeback yet. We're giving them hope for it. That's why it's called a hope spot. And then to stop a hope spot, we cut them off. So that's where the cutoff is. The cutoff is usually cut them off. Now, people can sometimes say cutoff for the heat spot, but it's just so much easier to be like, it's the spot for the heat spot. What's the heat spot? It's a lot easier that way. Then we go into hope and the cutoff. Cut them off from the heat, from the hope to go back into the heat. Once we're done, at the end of the heat, remember, just like we had the high spot, we're going to bring them all the way down. So we'll go fifth gear. This is when the heel loses their mind. They go crazy, pins them 3-4 times. They keep kicking out, gets them, starts punching, choking. We go into fifth gear. So bring the crowd all the way down. Then from here, we start to go into the comeback. Now, the comeback can lead into multiple things, right? We don't want to go 0 to hero. So the comeback usually will consist of we fighting up a little bit or whatever. And it can lead to either the bump and feed or a double down first, right? Because remember, if we're looking at energy levels here from the start of the match, technically, if we're going through basic, the baby face, we're going, he's shining, shining, shining. So his energy level is going up and the heels is going down because he's taking all the spots. And then we do the heat spot, which cuts the face off down. And it should be below the heel. But the heel is still here. He's still slow. So then he'll start getting more heat and coming back up to middle till he gets past. And then the face is going lower and lower to the point where he gets into a fifth gear and it drops the baby face all the way down to the energy levels. So we're talking about energy levels here. And the heel's energy level should be up here. So when you start doing the comeback, it should be almost there, almost there, almost there. And then we get to even. And you can do the even through a bump and feed. Or we go into the bump and feed, like so the double down to get him even. Or we go into bump and feed where it goes to like here. And the baby face is overcome. And then from here we do falsies to see who's going up. And then obviously before the go home, if face is up, then we go all the way down first and up. Does that make sense? So that's how I would go for it. So from the end of the heat, from fifth gear, we're going to go into a comeback. And the comeback will lead to either a double down or the bump and feed. And then we go into the falsies and then the finish. Okay? So we go shine, high spot, heat spot, hope spot, cut off, fifth gear, comeback. We go either to a double down or straight into the bump and feed, false finishes, finish. Now, when you hear someone say, let's go home, depending on where you are, it could mean different things. If we're in the heat and I say, let's go home, we're going to the falsies. If we're in the falsies and I say, let's go home, we're going to the finish. Cool? Does that make things a bit clearer for everyone?
Yeah, understand.
Perfect. Okay. Next one is Marty's questions. Open hand strikes versus close fist strikes. I remember during a shoot interview, Ted Long said that a close fist will result in a DQ. Do you think that enforcing the open hand? Hold on, sorry, I can't read it all because I don't have a scroll on this. I'm using like a little trackpad and it's horrible to use. what is the end of that question? Enforcing open hand rules. Is that the end of the question? Sorry, I can't see. Let me make this bigger. Oh, hold on. In today's wrestling scene would make sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so with the introduction of UFC, they haven't really enforced this anymore. No one really, unless you're watching NWA Power, I'm pretty sure they're the only ones that can still enforce like the closed fist rule. But I don't think AEW and WWE even warn them for closed fists anymore. I don't think like when Ted Long was doing this back in the day, it was closed fist was used to be illegal, but it's not anymore. That's why they used to do the sneaky ones behind the back. That's why they would like, you know, what I mean, if we're chaining and then suddenly I just punch you in the face, and the ref would give me a warning, he's not going to DQ me straight away. But like, it's like, hey, you can't do that punch. It's like, all right, cool, but you've already cheated to get on top. Like they would do that, but I don't think that these days. I mean, you can, but like in reality, it's like we're trying to tell stories here as well. So I think I don't think there's any other fight industry where you can't do close fists because you got bare knuckle boxing now. I mean, the only thing that you can't close your fist on is that slapping gimmick they do, right? I think that's the only thing, but everything else is like MMA, like everything's like close fist. So I think because due to like UFC being so popular, being so mainstream, like they're watching people get close fist punched to the head all the time. Yes, there's padding, but you're also watching bare knuckle boxing and they're doing that the same thing as well. So I don't know. I don't know where would, unless it's a story, unless your wrestling, your gimmick is like an old school wrestler and wants to follow the old school rules and stuff like that, then it would make sense. But I don't think you need to. But also too, I'm also not the type of guy that throws like 100 punches back and like at a guy. Like if I was in a real fight, there's no way I could take 5-6 shots unanswered without getting my hands up. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially if they're quick in succession, like that's ground and pound, and the guy's not covering up, then it's over. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't. That's just my thought on that. If that answers your question. Let me get to the next one. Lo, when developing your move set, would it be better to use moves that's more visible? Example, octopus hold over a Koji clutch, especially in an indie setting where there's no big screen. Yes, look, I think it's always an advantage to have something that's more visible, but not only just visible, but like makes sense. Like you can use like Koji clutch is fine and stuff, but it is harder, like depending on where you are. Like if you've got like a very high ring and everything's on the floor, and like the ceilings are, and they're looking up and they could just make out to see you, then maybe it's not the best. But I think that I think moves that people understand are probably more important. Like if people understand what the move is or what it's hurting, I think that's more important. I think visual would be great. Like that's why your sharpshooters and stuff like that that everyone can see makes sense. Big screens will definitely help. But I always will pick things that people can look at to see the move and go, that's what hurts. And if I did it to my friend, that's what hurts. So it looks and feels real. And then at the same time, it's like visually, it looks painful and looks great. Do you know what I mean? That's why those like, that's why I opted for like that single leg crab. Obviously, Lance uses it, but I use like a single leg lion tamer. I think that visually looks better. I've got the top of the crossface that I use as well, but I will always pick things that visually look better and are very easy to understand for fans when they're watching. That's probably what I would do. Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir. I've got a question. You mentioned just now that WWE is very American style when
Yeah.
it comes to their wrestling. So, the Malaysian crowds are more to the WWE's American style liking as well. So when you watch WWE nowadays, it's very repetitive. So sort of like they're doing the same move over and over again to the point where the crowd is sort of like reacting before the move even comes out. So would you say that if we implement that style here in Malaysia in the indie scene where we do like repetitive move sets, would you say that it would like be big over here, or would you say that, because we only get like one show every 2 months, it would not be enough to get over with the crowd? That's sort of like WWE style here in
Well,
Malaysia.
WWE, they have weekly television, so it's not repetitive. It's just that they just see this, they just see the move in different ways multiple times. So like you're going to see the RKO and you're going to see him win with the RKO every week. So you know that move is established as a move that he does to win, right? So like there were things that like Andre the Giant, like back in the day, like didn't necessarily have a finishing move. Do you know what I mean? It's like whatever he really wanted to finish it. Like Piper used a sleeper hold, but it wasn't necessarily how he won all his matches. Like for me, in terms of like you can have signatures, I would have signature stuff that you do. And you can kind of, use your socials or whatever to promote it. And, the fans will look forward to seeing that move or seeing you hit it. I think having variety in how you get into it is what's more exciting. Because they will pop when they see the move itself, but moves are moves. And at the end of the day, that's what they are. Like at the end of the day, if you're doing a certain move, each move, I believe, has like a crowd pop value. So an arm wringer will have a 1 and a suplex can get to a 4 or a 5, depending in front of the crowd. A body slam will be like a 3. A pole driver will be like a 9 or a 10. Like there's certain things when executed right will have like a move value. And the only way that value moves up and down is when you do it and why you do it. Right? So moves are just moves in the whole grand scheme of things. Right? I'm pretty sure in my last few matches I've won differently every time. And it's just kind of like I like to do that because then all of them will get a good pop as a falsie. Because if I won one match with one of my Germans and I won another match with the frog splash I use, and I've won a match with a super kick, and I've won a match with that C4 I use, then if I happen to hit a super kick and a falsie and they go, well, he won with this before and they kick out, I'm gonna get a pop. Right? If I hit him with whatever, like I'm gonna get a pop. So I think if they know you, they're gonna follow you and they're gonna pop. It's harder on indie shows because it's not as frequent. AEW and WWE, they're on every week, and then they're showing the replay of that stuff during the week, and then you're seeing it on the recaps on YouTube or whatever. So like you're seeing it multiple times for it to be established. If you're able to do something consistently over the years and you hit it crisp and clean and everyone knows it, then you can. But the way the crowd are going to remember it, like I said, it's just moves. They're just going to remember how you make them feel. The RKO itself is just like it became so memeable that everyone was like out of nowhere is what everyone remembers it. So he can hit that literally out of nowhere, and you can do it whenever. The crowd's going to pop, right? So I think the thing is like you don't know when he's going to hit it, and that's the exciting part. So I think in terms of your move set, you can keep doing the same thing over and over, and the crowd can get behind it and cheer it, or they might boo it until you stop it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, he always does this. The only thing I would do is just to make it not look like when I see that portion, it doesn't feel like, oh, okay, well, I've seen one Zul match, I've seen every single Zul match because he does the same thing over and over. Do you know what I mean? Like you want to switch it up and change it. I'd like to think that like I've had similar stories in all my matches because of the size or whatever, but it feels different because the stories and the matches and the mood and everything is just completely different. So again, it's up to you if you want to keep doing the same thing. Look, Cena used to get booed and now they love it. So, but Cena had to do 15 years of equity of becoming the best and not taking the time off and not being injured to kind of get that equity. So do you know what I mean? I think establishing your moveset is fine, but also not being married to it is also fine, because if you plan on making a career out of this and traveling and going other places, then someone might have your moveset and you might have to change it because they're higher on the card than you. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you, Carlo.
Cool. Okay. Sweet. Can I safely say that Shibata's English translate? Yeah, it's part of his character, 100%. It's a great way for him to kind of stand out and be a little bit different. And you know, if you turned on AEW and there's a lot of guys from the like, you know, through the forbidden door and you don't know who they are because you don't really watch Japanese wrestling, you can easily go, oh, the guy that does a translator thing, he already stands out because he's different. You know what I mean? So like that's again just part of the gimmick and finding ways to like stand out and look different. Okay, so let me have a look. All right, we'll do these last two questions. In terms of tag ropes, should we be training with them and enforcing them for yes, you should. Always use the tag ropes. I would always use the tag ropes. Because you would much rather train and be well adversed to know how to and work around the thing of knowing how to use tag ropes. And if they don't use it, it doesn't make a difference. But if you don't know how to use them and then there's a show where they do, you're cooked. And I would also try to learn as a tag to minimize your 5 count in the ring because there's places that are really strict and you only get 5 seconds and they'll DQ you or the ref will step in between your spot. So I would definitely get more practice and be more adverse in doing tag stuff. I know when you know, next time Emon's in and we're going to start doing tag stuff, we're going to be working on this and practicing it. All right, Kent's last question. Character-wise, is it okay if the hype man or manager outshine the wrestler? Should he keep things simple and let the wrestler be the main focus or try to get himself over as well? As the manager, it is not about you. Unless it's literally about the character. Your job as manager is to make the character mean more and get the wrestler over. That's what it's about. You got to have a gimmick in yourself, and then the time that you have to talk and promote and do your promos, you need to get yourself and what you stand for across. But your main goal is to get the superstar over, because without the wrestler over, you have no job. You can be a hype man all you want, but if you can't get the crowd to give a shit about the guy, then there's no point, because you will not have a job. So they shouldn't really outshine the wrestler. Like if I'm wrestling and I've got a manager outside taking the crowd's attention away from my match and making it about them, I'm guaranteeing you I'm not going to have that guy part of the ring ever again. Because now the crowd's missing the story, missing my gimmick, missing my story, the story I'm trying to tell, because they're watching the manager try to be a goof. For what? He's not doing any, he's not really he's not wrestling, right? The payoff isn't about them. The payoff is the character. Now, if the whole thing is you are a package deal and this guy's even then, I wouldn't say that Paul Heyman was ever outshining any of the guys that he was with. Do you know what I mean? He was never outshining the guys. He wasn't really outshining. If in terms of Bobby Heenan was paired with a lot of he was part of the royal family, but his guys were still the wrestlers doing it. When he was ringside, it wasn't about him. He only outshone him in the promos that he's talking on. Okay, here, good example. What did Bobby Heenan do ringside? What did he do? And if you can't think of anything, it's because you weren't watching him. You're watching the guys in the ring. But when it came to the promos, when it came to when they're walking to the ring together, when they had the victories at the end, it was all him. Then he was doing it. When it came to pivotal points in the match where he had to interfere and do something, he got involved, but that was the only time. He wasn't doing shit beforehand. So if he cost them, then he was the thorn, so you want him to get beat up. But he wasn't doing it the entire match where you're watching just him and not watching the wrestler. Right? So it was the guys ringside just don't, it's not about them. Look at Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman stays in the corner and does facial expressions reacting to what's happening to his guy. It's about them. It's not about him. He's not out there yelling at the crowd and talking shit. He's in there. He's also there that if the crowd need to come up or the crowd's getting quiet, then he can try to get the crowd going or do something. But he also needs to sit there and listen to the match and know he's not wrecking the flow of the story of where it's supposed to go because he's trying to get himself over. Right? Because at the end of the day, he's not wrestling the matches. Right? Usually a manager is there as a crutch to the character of the wrestler. Maybe the wrestler can't talk, so you got a manager talk for them. Maybe this character that you have lacks some sort of substance and character or something about them, so you put someone with them to add more personality, to add more flair to them, to make them like a bit more, to have something to bounce off, to give them more of a purpose. That's what the manager is there for, right? And as a baby, they're doing the same thing, and they're getting the crowd up when they need to. Do you know what I mean? That's the role of the manager. The role of the manager is to help enhance the talent they have. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily about that. Mizdow he was not a manager. He was a wrestler. He was a wrestler. The whole point was that he was a wrestler being forced to not wrestle. So he was just mimicking everything that he did. So he's not a manager. He's a wrestler. Mr. Fuji, what did he do? Nothing. He would throw powder in their eyes. We just spoke about Heyman. Heyman's like the greatest manager of all time. It's never about him. Right? If you want to be the star of the show, be a wrestler and be the star. But this industry, it's called professional wrestling, not professional managing. Do you know what I mean? That's the way it has to work. Like your job as the manager is to help enhance the talent. It's not about you. Now, if you're able to enhance a lot of people's ability and their talent, and you're great at it, and you can help elevate them to another level, then you're going to be paired with other guys to help do the same thing. But just because you're put with them doesn't mean it's going to work every single time. Heyman was put with guys that didn't work. He was also put with guys that it did work, and it worked really well. It's the reason why the bloodline starts working so well now. It's because he's there, but he doesn't do stuff when the wrestling is happening, because that's not his role. His role is to enhance the babyface, or enhance the heel, or enhance the story without being involved in the ring. But Heyman doesn't bump anymore. That's why the bump this week was massive. Because it's not about him, and it's not about him wrestling. It's almost like, you know what I mean? You have empathy for him because he just got killed when he's defenseless. So someone attacking a manager makes them look weak. Do you know what I mean? Even when wrestlers come down to manage other guys, their goal is not to be looked at. And we only talk shit and make noise and do stuff when our guy's doing it. Like me and Jean Wen had to manage Eman during the lucha thing, and we would only talk shit and do stuff like on the lull bits. When Eman was up, we were up with him, and then we're talking shit. When it was down, we were down selling for it. Like, it's not about us, it's about him. You know what I mean? So it's hard. It's the same as like a ref. People are like, oh, but I want to get my character over as a ref. I'm like, bro, you're a ref. Be the ref. If you're transitioning, like if Ryan's actually pretty good at wrestling. So once he transitions over, that makes sense why he's trying to get over to do that stuff. But when he's reffing, he's not making it about him. If there's a storyline that has to be about him, then he will. That's why he's doing this. When he's doing that stuff with Bryson, like it makes sense because that's their gimmick thing, and he's wrestling him, so it's there. But every other match, he's not doing that with me. Do you know what I mean? They're meant like it, that's the whole point. So sometimes the hardest thing is everyone wants to be a star. This is the thing, and this is what happens in wrestling. But we all have roles. We have all roles to play. Do you know what I mean? The fact, I'm in a position now where I'm quite lucky that I've chosen to be heavyweight champion, but that carries a lot of responsibility. There's a lot I need to do for it, right? But before that, like for instance, I'm going to show this Friday that I'm on, and I'm like, it's the shits, and it is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just what it is. I'm a reserve match, and it's like, oh, whatever. You don't always. Emma's laughing. He's not even booked. They didn't even book him. We're literally a faction, and we haven't been seen for a year, and I'm just appearing on my own for no reason. So again, some places you're going to be used, and some places, and then you just can't have an ego. It is what it is. They're just dumb. It's like, all right, cool, man. I'll show you how good I am and do what I got to do. So at the end of the day, you just got to like, we did. We died after the Lucha House party. But that, you know what I mean? What can we do? And then what's going to happen is you just do your thing. You just keep working. You keep busting your ass, and then you'll get an opportunity somewhere else. Because now it looks like they're going to run with us elsewhere at another company. They'll probably give us the time and energy. So you know what I mean? That's what you got to run with. And you just can't have an ego in wrestling. You know, I know it's a bit off track, but like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's something that we definitely need to talk about. I actually might cover it more next class, because it is a tough one, especially when you start off. I mean, I know when you first start wrestling, everyone's like, I want to win and I want to do this. It's like, bro, wrestling's not real. It's not real, man. If this is a real fight, my match probably still end the same, but I mean, there's a real fight and a lot quicker, right? So, you know what I mean? This is, we're here telling stories. It's just currently my turn to be champion, and then there'll be someone else's turn to be champion, and then it is what it is. And sometimes you're holding 20 belts, and sometimes you're jobbing in the opening match. It's just how it all works. And then no matter how big of a fish you think you are, you're still like a small fish in another pond. So at the end of the day, the best thing you can do, especially to wrap up everything we're talking about, you just need to focus on your shit, your character, and how you connect with the crowd. Because at the end of the day, if you connect with the crowd and they cheer for you and they make noise, it doesn't matter if people like bookers don't like you or whatever. If the crowd love you, they have no choice but to use you and to push you. Cool? All right, if you have more questions, we'll save them for next week. We went a bit over, but we always do that shit. All right, I'm going to stop the recording. Oh shit, I must press end. I'll do that one. Hold on. And stop.